My car paint had become so faded and scratched that I was embarrassed to drive it. The clear coat was peeling in patches, the hood looked like a sunburned forehead, and there were swirl marks everywhere from years of bad car washes. I had been quoted $250 for a professional paint restoration at a local detail shop. That was more than I had spent on the car itself. So I did what any sensible person would do. I turned to the internet. I watched dozens of videos, read countless forum threads, and eventually stumbled upon a method that promised to restore my car's shine for less than $50. The ingredients? A shape polishing compound, a foam pad, a drill attachment, and a lot of patience. The total cost was about $20, but the professional would charge me $250. That meant I could save over $200 if I did it myself. But the warnings were everywhere. One wrong move and you could burn through the clear coat. One aggressive pass and you'd ruin the paint permanently. I had never done this before. I had never even waxed a car properly. But I had a weekend, a drill, and a desperate desire to see my car look decent again. So I decided to test this DIY paint restoration method for myself. And what I learned over the next 2 days not only saved me money, it completely changed how I think about car paint, oxidation, and the difference between a quick fix and a permanent solution. This is not a sponsored video. I bought every product with my own money, and honestly, I wish someone had warned me about the risks before I started. Let me give you some context about what happens to car paint over time. Modern cars have a multi-layer paint system, a primer, a base coat, the color, and a clear coat on top. The clear coat is a transparent layer of urethane that protects the color from UV rays, scratches, and chemical damage. But over years of sun exposure, bird droppings, acid rain, and improper washing, the clear coat oxidizes and degrades. It turns hazy, peels, and loses its gloss. This is called clear coat failure. The only way to fix it is to either remove the damaged clear coat and reapply, or to polish the surface to smooth out the microscopic imperfections. Professional detailers use high-speed rotary buffers, expensive compounds, and years of experience to do this safely. The DIY method I discovered involved using a drill with a polishing pad and a compound called Maguire's Ultimate Compound, a mild abrasive that removes oxidation and scratches. The instructions were simple: apply the compound to the pad, work it into the paint in small sections, and wipe it off. But the warnings were serious. Use too much pressure and you'll burn the clear coat. Stay on one spot too long and you'll create a hologram, a spider web of fine scratches. I had a faded, scratched silver sedan that had seen better days. The paint had lost all its depth. The reflections were blurry and distorted. I could see the oxidation as a cloudy layer on the surface. I took a before photo of the hood, which had a large patch of dull whitish haze. I also photographed a side panel with deep swirl marks that caught the light in a terrible way. Then I prepared my workstation, a shaded driveway, a bucket of water, a microfiber towel, and the drill with a foam polishing pad. I started on the hood, applying a small amount of compound to the pad, and began polishing at a low speed. The sound was a gentle hum. I moved the pad in overlapping passes, just like the videos instructed. After about 3 minutes, I stopped, wiped the surface, and looked. The difference was immediately noticeable. The dull haze was gone. The paint had a deep, rich color again. The reflection was sharp. I could see my own face in the hood. I couldn't believe it. I moved to the next section, and then the next. 2 hours later, I had polished the entire hood, and it looked like a mirror. I was ecstatic. I took an after photo and compared it to the before. The transformation was stunning. I felt like a professional. I moved on to the side panels, which had the swirl marks. The compound didn't remove them completely, but it reduced them significantly. The swirls were still faintly visible in direct sunlight, but the overall appearance was 100 times better. I finished the whole car in about 5 hours, spread over 2 days. The final result was a shiny, glossy, beautiful car that looked at least 10 years younger. The total cost was $20 for the compound and the pads. The professional would have charged me $250, much more than the $95 I had originally hoped for. But then I noticed something. The next day, I went to the car, and the shine was still there. But when I looked closely, I could see faint hazy patches, areas where the compound had left a residue that I hadn't fully removed. I had to go back with a clean microfiber and a spray bottle of water to wipe it down properly. That took another hour, and I noticed that some areas were slightly duller than others, inconsistent. I realized I hadn't applied even pressure throughout. The drill attachment had caused some unevenness, so I went back, polished those spots again, and finally the finish was uniform. It took me a total of 7 hours to get it perfect. But the result was genuinely impressive. The car looked fantastic. The reflections were crisp and clean. The color popped. I took it for a spin in the evening light, and the paint shimmered like it was new. I was proud of myself. But I also wanted to know if this DIY method was truly as good as a professional job. So I took the car to my local detailer and asked him to inspect it. He looked it over, nodded, and said, "For a beginner, this is pretty good, but I can tell you used a drill. See these faint circular marks? That's from the pad. And this area here, you polished a little too hard and thinned the clear coat. It's still okay, but it's not as thick as it should be." He showed me with a paint thickness gauge. The clear coat was 10% thinner in the spots I had worked aggressively. I was shocked. I didn't think I had been that aggressive, but I had. The compound is abrasive, and I had unknowingly removed some of the clear coat. It wasn't noticeable to the naked eye, but with a gauge, it was measurable. That was the price I paid for saving money. The professional would have used a variable speed rotary buffer with a finer polish, and would have tested the paint thickness beforehand to avoid over-thinning. I had essentially taken a shortcut that compromised a tiny fraction of my clear coat. The saving was still worth it to me, but I now understood the risk. If I had gone too deep, I would have damaged the base coat, and that would have cost me a full repaint, thousands of dollars. So I learned that this DIY method is powerful, but it's not for everyone. If you have a thick clear coat and you follow the instructions carefully, you can get excellent results. But if your paint is already thin, or if you're not patient, you can do more harm than good. I decided to test my results against a professional restoration on a friend's car, a similar model with the same age. His car had been professionally polished and coated. The difference was subtle, but real. His car had a deeper, wetter look, and the clear coat was uniform across all panels. Mine had a slight variation in gloss, not noticeable from a distance, but visible up close. The professional job cost him $250. Mine cost me $20 and 7 hours of my time. I saved $230, but I also gained experience, knowledge, and a lot of respect for the craft. Let me give you the final numbers. A professional paint restoration costs about $250. A DIY kit with compound, pads, and a drill attachment costs about $20. My time investment was 7 hours. If I valued my time at $10 an hour, that's $70. So the total effective cost was $90, which means I saved about $160 compared to a professional. But if you consider the risk of damaging the clear coat, the DIY method is only worth it if you're careful, patient, and willing to learn. I did save over $95 in cash, but the real value was the knowledge I gained. I now understand my car's paint better than ever. I know how to maintain it, how to wash it properly, and how to spot early signs of oxidation. I also learned that the glossy shine you see in those product commercials is not magic. It's just abrasive compounds and elbow grease. The secret is technique, not the product. The reason professionals charge so much is not because of their products, it's because of their hands. They know exactly how much pressure to apply, how many passes to make, and when to stop. That knowledge comes from years of practice. My first attempt was good, but not perfect. With practice, I could get closer to professional results. But I also have to be honest, the DIY method is not a permanent fix. The clear coat will oxidize again over time. You'll need to polish it every year or two to maintain the shine. A professional job often includes a ceramic coating that lasts years. So if you want a long-term solution, you might need to invest in professional protection. But if you just want your car to look decent for a fraction of the price and you're willing to put in the work, this method works. Does this DIY paint restoration actually work? Yes, it absolutely works. The shine is real, the oxidation is removed, and the car looks dramatically better. Is it as good as a professional job? No. The professional will have more uniform results, longer lasting protection, and zero risk of thinning the clear coat. But for the average person who wants to save money and doesn't mind spending a few hours on the weekend, it's a fantastic alternative. Should you try it? If you have a car with faded paint, a steady hand, and a willingness to learn, yes, absolutely. But watch a dozen tutorials first, practice on a small, inconspicuous area, and always use the least aggressive approach. Start with a light polish and only move to more aggressive compounds if needed. And never ever use a drill at high speed. Keep it slow and steady. The most important thing I learned from this experiment is that saving money doesn't have to mean sacrificing quality. It just means you have to be willing to do the work. And sometimes the work itself teaches you more than any professional could. If you enjoyed this experiment and you want to see more real tests like this, you need to commit to this channel right now. Subscribe to Overlooked and hit that notification bell because I test the hacks that nobody else dares to try, and I show you the truth, whether it works or fails. Trust me, you will not want to miss the next experiment. If you have ever restored your car paint at home, or if you have any other detailing hacks, let me know in the comments. I genuinely want to hear your experiences, good or bad. Thanks for watching. And remember, sometimes the best way to get a perfect shine is to get your hands dirty. You just have to be willing to try. See you in the next one.